So there are a few things to point out with the dynamic topology system. It works well for the most part, but um, I believe that there's going to be some more work done on it because it's not. There's a few kind of issues with it. So if I pull up the primary stick thumbstick menu here and go down into the mesh density tab, down the bottom here, regularize, which is the dynamic topology. This is the default here, 50, and apply. So these two meshes here, you can see that you can see the wireframe. The two of them are identical. They're just clones. So if I hit this at the default, that's the default for this particular object at this particular scale. So the problem being that if I into the brush, resolution's turned on, and I have it set to absolute, so that's like a global setting, and that's also a 50. And then if I start brushing, it's a lot higher. So um, I'd love to see these two synced up so that the absolute and this regularize from this menu are synced, so they're exactly the same. So we'll set that aside and just concentrate on the actual brushes. So when you turn this on here, the resolution, when this is active, dynamic resolution, open up this extra menu. By default, it's set to relative, so that's going to be based on your brush size, like you get with other programs. So obviously, the brush is getting bigger in screen space, so the resolution is getting lower as it is in other programs. So personally, I depends. The odd time maybe it depends on the situation, but I much prefer to control things globally. So I'm only worrying about this resolution here, and it doesn't matter about the size of the brush. It's always going to be the same. That's the way I like to work. So in this case, I can see that it's too high. So this is set to this default of 50. So there's a couple of tools to work around that. So say I import this mesh and I want to keep sculpting, but I want to keep that resolution. I can just hit this up here at the top, set to object average resolution. And now that will automatically set it to the average res of this object, and it'll also keep this at 50. So this is kind of your midpoint here. So whereas otherwise, before I did that, I would have to fiddle with this. It's going to be lower, and then I might go on up higher and say, oh, well, that needs to be a bit higher. And then I have to go maybe to the maximum. And then if I still need more, then I would have to go up to here into this stroke resolution multiplier and then maybe tweak that up a bit more. So, there's a lot of sort of guesswork there, trial and error and whatever. So, to make it easy, they have that setting in there. So open up this again, resolution absolute, and then just set to the average. And then because that's the average there of the entire mesh, it's going to select that. So the other handy feature to help control the resolution here is this picker, like it's a res picker. So let's say, for instance, I've imported one mesh, or I've worked on one mesh, and I want to keep everything more or less the same resolution as what I'm already working on. So for this example there, we'll select this and I'll change the resolution. And just if you have a look at the preview there, it gives us a preview of the resolution on the mesh as we use this regularize. So I'll just lower this down. And let's say then, for whatever reason, I want to transfer this over to this. So while that's selected then, and your brush is selected, back in here to the resolution, extra settings, and then just click on this set to surface sample average res, and then get this icon, and this preview sphere will turn white. And then as we go over the mesh here, you can see on the surface, it's picking from that mesh. So we've picked it there now with the primary trigger. Back over to this mesh, and now the two of these will be the same resolution. So those two features definitely help to control your resolution. This set to average and set surface to sample. So I definitely recommend checking them out. These other ones here, I tend to keep them off. This one here, when you use the voxel remesh, that will set the resolution. So say for instance, I'm working on this one here, and I will turn that on, and then I voxel remesh this. Even though our res was picked from that low one, now that I've remeshed with this setting on, and this is always going to average out to 50, and then I start sculpting, and you can see now it's maintained that resolution. So if you are using voxel remesh and you want to maintain that, you can keep that on. And it's the same for this. Every time the object gets selected, it's going to auto reset the res. I tend to turn this off so I have a bit more control. So these three settings, definitely keep them in mind when using this system. It becomes, because it was even confusing for me at the start, there seemed to be, and the fact that this is not synced, I'm hoping in the future this will be this will be synced. Not that one, sorry, I'm just switching over. This one here, regularize, will be synced up, so then they'll all be synced up. And in the meantime, that's that average and the surface picker. And then if you're using voxel remesh, remember to turn this setting on. So that's pretty much it. And as I mentioned in the last video, you can use this regularized brush. So back to this one, and then we've picked a res has been reset when we voxel remeshed. So that's in the brush now. So when I go back to this object, you know, that's using that res that I picked up from the voxel remesh. So that's turned off, and then you can do the same process. You can go in here, lower the res, use your picker to pick from that one back into this one, and then set a res here. And I'm using the regularized brush here instead of the smooth, so it's not affecting the surface. And now, like, that's more than enough of that will be the average. So if I hit this again now, you'll see nothing happened, and there are more faces obviously on here. So this is, it's averaged out to this res, which has been picked up. So in that case, for me, even that's, you know, depending on the situation, it's a bit more guesswork. So I would rather either just, you know, you can always zoom out back to that res there and use the picker. So picker, pick this, and now it's picked that. So you can pick on the same mesh, obviously, to equalize out the surface. So that's pretty much it. Just those couple of different points to keep in mind makes this system a lot easier to use. It keeps everything in and around that 50, so you're not constantly tweaking and going up and down to sort of tweak in those settings. And just be wary that this here is not synced up. You have to tweak this a little bit more, but as I say, hopefully that'll be fixed then in the future. All right, then I'll leave it at that for this.